What's up guys, I'm Sean, continuing to build out my E92 M3. I bought these brake calipers online. It's from a F8X M3 M4. So make sure the back of the calipers say 370, 380. So this is from a M3 M4. Otherwise you're going to get the wrong calipers from a regular 3 Series. So now I just have to clean it up a little bit more, sand it down, and then paint them. Alright, I scuffed it up. Then I cleaned it some more with brake clean, and then I went another run with 1500 grit sandpaper. You don't have to sand to the bare metal, obviously, you just want to make it rough a little bit. And then I did a final cleaning with rubbing alcohol, and I have zip ties here, so I'm going to hold it when I spray paint it. This is what I'm going with, VHT caliper paint, real red. I use this on all my brake calipers, and it withstands all the heat and high temperature from the track. Really good caliper paint, and I have about 3 or 4 cans of these. Alright, I did about 4 or 5 light coats. Now I'm going to let it dry and give it about 48 hours to dry. I have 2 ladders with a broomstick, so it's hanging with the zip tie. And the other 2 are my pull-up bar right there. Alright, the parts I've been waiting for from BMW World are here. The front spindle hub carriers with the hardware for the wheel bearings. BMW World stainless steel lines. OEM brake rotors from the F8X M3 M4. These are made by SHW. So the rears are 370 millimeters and the front are 380 millimeters. So about 20 millimeters bigger in the front and the rear compared to the E92 M3. Here are the rear spacers and bolts from Seems Legit. You can buy an entire brand new kit for about 5 to 6 grand, but I'm gonna do this the bare minimum way. Now we're back at the front passenger side. We're going to remove the brake caliper with 2 18mm bolts. Then we have to remove the brake rotor so we can get to the spindle. Brake rotor off, caliper off. I didn't unhook it yet because I don't want the brake fluid to start dripping. I just hung it up like this for now. Now we're going to remove the brake dust shield so we can get to the spindle. To remove the front spindle, it's held on by a 21 nut right there, down here, and one back here. And if it spins, I have a Torx T40 to hold the center from spinning. The strut 16 has already been removed when we did the camber plates. So I'm gonna break the loose the 21s and pull off this whole assembly. All right, now the whole thing is ready to come off. All right, there it is. The wheel sensor is still on. I should have did this earlier, but it's never too late as long as the wheel sensor doesn't rip off. It's a Torx T30 bolt right there. Now we're gonna reuse the wheel bearing. You can buy a brand new one if you like, or buy the F80X wheel bearing. But if you do that, then the thread pitch will be different for the studs. So just remove those 4 18mm bolts right there. Bolts holding the wheel studs. It looks like there's red Loctite on it. But we're not going to reuse these anyway, because the hub from the F80X is different than this one. See, the E92 M3, this area is flat bolts with the flat hub. For the F8X M3 M4, there's this ball cutout. That's why I have this special hardware that has the ball seat for the F80X hub, and that's the part number. The E9X M3 wheel bearings only go on the F80 spindle a certain way. See, all the bolts line up. If I clock it this way, it's way off. If I clock it again, it's way off, and if I go again, it's way off again. So it's actually only one way for it to go, for all the holes to line up, and it ends up being that little tab notch goes here. This is the special bolt that goes with the F80X M3 M4 spindle. It's a Torx T60. So I'm going to install this using some blue Loctite, torque it down to 59 foot-pounds, and then do a 90-degree turn. It might be easier to torque it once it's all up here, but I'll see what I could do if I could torque it down here. Now I'm going to tackle the wheel speed sensor. You can buy the F80X version and then splice the wiring to make it plug and play. But again, I'm going to do this cost-effective way. I'm going to just cut off the ear of this wheel speed sensor, and I fabbed up a custom bracket to install this. With the ear of the wheel speed sensor cut, I can install it straight like this. The tab that I just cut facing outward, and then I fabbed up a little bracket like this just to hold it in place. I'm just going to drill a little hole right there. Here's the wheel speed sensor installed. The little ear that I cut off is facing the outside. So this wheel speed sensor is definitely not going anywhere. Again, you can buy the F8X one and change the connector to make it plug and play. I'm just doing this cheap and easy. I slid the new spindle into place and now let's reconnect the arms. Alright, the spindle's on. Everything's been torqued down to spec. So this is the E90X brake shield. It doesn't fit the F8X spindle. I think what I'm going to do is just cut this in half, because what's really important is to protect the ball joints from heat when you're on the track or driving. So these are the 3 ball joints down here. That's really important. Nothing else really up here is important. It's better to run without the brake dust shield so you get more airflow to the rotors and the calipers. But it's important to protect the ball joints. See, so that hole lines up. This one does too, but the third one doesn't. And I think I'm just gonna cut this in half, drill out the hole right there. So I'll just install 2 bolts at the bottom and nothing in the top. So now the dust shield will protect the ball joints at the bottom. So now what's left to do is to install the brake disc and then the caliper. Here's a comparison shot of the brake rotors. On the left is the F8X M3 M4. On the right is the E92 M3. So the stock E92 M3 is 360 millimeters and the F8X is 380 millimeters. So 20 millimeters bigger, almost an inch bigger overall. So more surface area for better heat dissipation. The instructions from SHW says no need to remove the protective coating. You can just install it. And this brake disc says RH for right hand side. So now I'm going to mount it up to the hub. You'll know when it's installed correctly when the locating pins are at the right spot and the hole for the screw is at the right spot. Brake rotor has been installed. Thing looks massive. And I spin it. Make sure it doesn't rub on the brake dust shield or anything else. So it's good to go. Now I just have to install the new brake calipers. Nice fresh red paint. I have my M sticker that I'm going to apply. So now I'm going to mount it up with the factory 18 millimeter bolts. Brake caliper looks good. 4 piston up front versus the 1 piston sliding caliper. Now this is a fixed caliper and 4 pistons. Bigger brake pad, better braking performance. It spins freely, no issues. It's an OEM Plus setup, so everything should work perfectly. Now I just have to install the stainless steel lines and the brake pads and then flush the brakes. Doing a quick check of the new 4 piston calipers and the larger rotor. It weighs about 33 pounds. So let's see how much the factory E92 stuff weighs. Stock front E92 M3 brake caliper with the rotor. It weighs about 37 pounds. So it's about 4 pounds heavier than the F8X setup. This single piston sliding caliper is huge and it's heavy, whereas the 4 piston Brembo F8X M3 M4 calipers are lighter. So I save about 4 pounds upsprung weight on each corner. That's huge. Alright, the fronts are done. Installed the brake pads and the stainless steel lines, and I bled the brakes. So front passenger looks way better. 4 piston in the front, 380 millimeter rotor. Here it is on the driver's side. Now I just have to tackle the rears. I've always wanted to do the brakes on this car because the rear brakes are done. There's a lip on the rotor and the pads are really thin. So I don't want to replace it with factory, so I might as well do an upgrade. So the rear brakes is what was driving me to do it. My front brakes are still good. Remove the 2 16 millimeter bolts behind the caliper and this whole caliper should come out. I removed the caliper and I just propped it right there. I don't want to undo the lines yet because it's going to get messy with brake fluid. So now I'm going to remove the disc, 6 millimeter Allen, there and right there. The 2 Allen heads have been removed. E-brake down. Now I have a rubber mallet. I was struggling with pulling off the rotor. I think the adjuster was too tight. So even though everything was loose, the rotor was still stuck. So I had a hard time prying it and wiggling it, then eventually it got loose. You can try to adjust that adjuster, but I have wheel studs so it blocks the adjuster. And you can also adjust the adjuster via your e-brake handle, but luckily I was able to pull it off. I just trimmed off a couple inches right there and right there. just to make room for the caliper. I'm leaving the heat shield because then there's ball joint bushings all around. Unlike the front where I cut off half, the rear has a bunch of different bushings all around, so I want the heat shield to protect the bushings. You may have to get a hammer and chisel and tap that inner lip of the dust shield. Minimizes the inner rotor from rubbing and scraping on this all around. Rotor's been installed and it spins freely. It's not hitting anything. So now I'm going to install the Seems Legit spacer bracket with the grade 10.9 hardware. Alright, brake caliper has been installed. And if you look up here, Seems Legit black bolt, washer, then the hub, then their 2mm bracket, then the caliper. So the little spacer bracket is between the hub and the caliper. So it pushes the caliper outwards. So it centers it with the rotor. Now all that's left is to install the brake pads and run the stainless steel lines and then bleed the brakes. Weighing the rear F8X M3 M4 brake caliper and upsized rotors, it weighs approximately 28 pounds. So let's see how much the E92 M3 one weighs. The stock rear caliper with rotor weighs around 29 pounds. Alright guys, that's a wrap. Rear big brake kit installed. So now instead of a single piston sliding caliper, I have 2 piston fixed caliper with a 20mm larger rotor. So it's going to be better cooling overall. Here it is on the driver's side. Pretty straightforward DIY. These brakes with the BMW stainless steel brake lines. The stainless steel brake lines are pretty easy to install, except for the inner ones back there. The inner brake lines are really hard to install, but it's still doable without dropping the subframe. Here it is, the front driver's side. So instead of a single piston sliding caliper in the front, now I have 4 pistons in the front and fixed calipers. And this rotor is also 20mm bigger, so better cooling. And each corner saves some weight, which is going to make a big difference in handling and performance. So I know these are going to perform better than stock. And these are the same brakes on my F8X M3. And I ran these brakes with PFC brake pads and stainless steel lines and upgraded brake fluid, and they perform great on the track. So I know they're going to perform on my E92 M3. They're not going to be as good as a true big brake kit, but that's okay, because this build is going to be a dual purpose street build. I'm going for the OEM Plus look. So OEM brake retrofit kit is going to perform better on the track than stock, and it actually looks better as well. If I was building a hardcore track car, then I would have went with a true big brake kit, but this is a dual purpose street build. I already have my E46 M3 as my hardcore track car. So OEM Plus retrofit, you can do this yourself by sourcing some used rotors and calipers on eBay for maybe about $2 grand. The front spindles are about $500 each. So now you're looking about $3 grand or so on the low end. On the high end, you're looking at $5 to $6 grand if you buy a pre-assembled kit online. I think that's a little overkill. At $5 or $6 grand, you might as well go for a big brake kit. But at $3 grand for a full big brake kit, that's a good deal. I did a ton of research on brakes, and I thought about going with another retrofit kit online that's a lot cheaper, but they're retrofitting brakes from a Camaro or a Mustang or from an Alfa Romero. But I didn't want to go with that setup because I'm not sure about the brake bias, nor do I trust the caliper brackets. With this setup, it's an OEM setup, so I know it's going to be reliable and safe, and the parts are easy to come by and very affordable. Repurposing my F8X M4 track wheels. So these are the BMW wheels. It clears this factory big brake kit no problem. So these wheels are 18 by 10.5 ET24 front with 295/30 18. Definitely too wide for this car, but I'm just going to use them on the street, definitely not on the track. My fake carbon fiber center caps, fake carbon right there, some fake carbon right there. You know, the red brakes definitely makes it pop. And on the rear, again, repurposing my F8X M4 track wheels, 18 by 11 ET44 with a 20mm spacer. So that basically makes it 18 by 11 ET24. Running 315/30 18. So they fit with the spacer, but they poke and definitely can't track them because it's too wide. So it's going to be my street wheels until I burn up the tires, and then I'm going to get probably 295/35 in the back and 275/35 in the front. So retrofit big brake kit done, as well as the thrust arm with the BMW mountain ball bearings, as well as the Vorselite camber plates. So now I just have to go for a test drive and also get an alignment. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe. Thanks for watching.